Well, I'm not going to talk about winter survival. I'm going to talk about survival. And I'm not going to be on for an hour. I'm going to be on for an hour and a half. This class I used to teach, would usually run for a week. So I got a lot of information to get out to you. I'm just going to roar through it. There's a 22-minute video that I'm going to present. It's going to set the foundation for this whole thing. So anyway, this is me, check airman, currently Russ Flying Service. I've got a really tough schedule out there. I work all of May, doing a lot of check rides and training. Then I go on my summer schedule, 14 days off and 3 days on. It's a tough yeah. But anyway, yeah, go ahead. I first came to Alaska in the mid-'60s, and I started flying. Before that, I've been flying over 40 years. Since, well, I didn't have a license when I was a kid. But anyway, this is me when I came to Alaska. I got kind of crosswise with the FAA because I converted this Convair from a 680 to a 985. Formed my own 135 business called Stark Terror Airlines. I didn't have very many people signing up to work for it. But I became a bushy pilot, and then I got a bride there I'm still married to. And the FAA made me stick that restricted sign in there, but I just ignored that and just kept flying people around. So next. What I'm going to talk about today is survival, basically. This is a nice summer day, but it's going through the Alaska range. But if you stay in South Central and you fly Talkeetna to Homer for the used to be $100 hamburger, now it's probably $1,000. And cut in all the cost of fuel and your time and effort, everything else. If you go west, you got the Alaska range. You go north, you got the Alaska range. Go northeast, you got the Talkeetnas, east the Chugachs, the Wrangels. The state's pretty heavily winterized like this in the summer. So when you leave Lake Hood, wherever you're going on floats, if you're just in South Central, it's one thing. But once you get beyond South Central and you have to go across the ranges and stuff like this, this is winter conditions anywhere in the mountains. And the nice thing is, on floats anyway, a lot of these areas are nice landing spots to walk away from. So you always should be looking for possible landing spots. Once we venture on out of South Central, we're in winter conditions, basically. And that's kind of where maybe some ideas came in about winter flying, winter survival, and stuff like that. So, without further ado, I started work for OAS in '93. Was there for about 27 years. And, as soon as I got there, I was kind of tasked with putting together a film, and it's called Will, Skill, and Luck. And this is based on an accident on the no attack, and I'll recap it at the end of the film. It's about 22 minutes long. It's kind of grainy, but it's the heart of my whole presentation on being prepared, being properly prepared. But just put up with it and enjoy it.
I was involved in an aircraft accident. I was working with National Park Service along with another seasonal ranger, Patty, and the Park Service pilot, Bruce. And we were flying a 185 Cessna on floats. And we were on routine hunting patrol.
I was a pilot and I had 2 observers on board with me. We stopped at this lake. We've been flying for a couple hours to get out and take a break.
Before we landed on that lake, we were going to land on a certain lake prior to that, but there was ice on that lake. So what we did was we went a few more miles and picked this other lake, which is a pretty remote lake, a pretty small lake, not a big pond. We had a real good landing. It's a little bit breezy, 15-mile-an-hour winds. But as soon as we landed, we got out, and there's already ice starting to form on the floats of the plane. We got back into the plane, and still get a little bit more icy. It was pretty cold out. It was about 25 degrees, and now the winds are picking up.
And the wind really picked up and became gusty and turbulent.
Like Stan said, everything, things started to ice up. That was a real concern of Bruce's. Bruce was scraping off the ice on the window, and he was checking the rudders and just making sure there was no.
I sailed back to the south end of the lake here and began my takeoff run.
He tried 2 takeoff runs. The second one, he got out and scraped the ice off the windshield with his credit card, left driver's license. He fell off the float because they were so iced over.
The aircraft.
What's the rest of the fuselage look like?
Rolled,
He was wet before he even got
here.
here.
Overturned.
The wind and the water, the whole plane just flipped forward. And then sitting in the front seat, I saw the water, the spirit of the water coming out as we were flipping over.
I had opened my door as soon as I felt that the airplane was going to overturn. As it turned out, this was very advantageous to our survival. It expedited us getting out of the airplane.
And it just kind of rolled right over. And luckily, Bruce opened his door before we completely flipped over.
As soon as we flipped over, I realized once I was upside down, hanging by my seatbelt, what had happened. At that point, I still wasn't real worried about the situation. I knew what had happened, but I wasn't quite panicked yet. And then, almost immediately, the water started rushing in. And remember, I was upside down. The door wouldn't open. I couldn't.
36 hours after this accident, there were 6 inches of ice on that
I
lake.
didn't think of kicking the window out. The only thing I thought of was, okay, I know the door on the other side is open. I'll just go out there. Started to panic a little bit because I was underwater and I knew the fuselage was full, and I didn't know what was really in my way.
My first reaction when I got out of that plane was to swim ashore. Bruce grabbed me, he yanked me, and got me up onto the floats. And he said, pull your life vest. I did not pull my life vest. I wasn't thinking about that. The very beginning of that plane accident was really, it was real traumatic for me.
I inflated Patty's jacket. My life jacket did not inflate. I had an inflatable Stearns jacket on.
And I didn't even think to inflate my jacket until he said that. And it just didn't even strike me, even though I swam the plane up.
The wind chill was down around 15 to 20 below zero, and we were completely wet at this point. I knew that if we stayed on the floats, that due to our exposure, we'd be dead. Probably, I don't know if we could have survived a couple hours on that.
Bruce asked if all 3 of us were ready to swim. We would not make it if we stayed on those floats. We would die of exposure. And at that point, I was feeling like I'm not going to leave these floats. I'm going to stay on these floats until somebody finds us. And I just felt like I couldn't swim those 75 or 100 yards. And he finally talked me into decided we were gonna do this together.
And I was real scared at that point, because no one knows we're here. It's not like we wrecked, we get to shore and someone comes and saves us. It's not gonna be that easy.
They
It was hard to be
deviated
decisive, to
16
make a
miles
decision,
off course.
and to feel the hypothermia start to,
Nobody even knew
start
they
to
were
come in.
that far west.
He made that decision for us, and
Oh, yeah.
he took charge. He said, you know, we're either gonna stay on these floats together and die together, which we don't wanna do, or we're gonna swim to shore. And we decided to swim to shore together, and we were gonna stay together. Bruce and I were pretty much swimming alongside each other. Stan was somewhere behind us a little bit, but not too far.
And I started realizing, I'm not doing too well. So while I was floating on my back, just getting a little break, trying to, breathe again, choking, my body felt totally numb, especially my arms and my legs, feet and hands especially. And then all of a sudden, all the pain, the pain of the water, the pain of the swimming, the pain of the stress was all going away. And it was a really light feeling. It just felt so easy. It's like, okay, this can all be over. It can be so easy. All I have to do here is just keep laying on my back. And it's just like I'm going to fall asleep. It's going to be real easy and it's going to be over. It wasn't really even scary at that time. I wasn't scared. I wasn't in pain. I wasn't even tired anymore. It was just relaxing. And then it hit me that, what I was thinking, because still I was hypothermic at the time, and I could tell I was still thinking slow. And then it struck me that hey, yeah, I'll be here and it'll be all over, but then I'm dead. And then that's when it struck me that the feeling I was having was the feeling of death.
I recall about midway through the swim to shore, I just started becoming numb, totally numb. I couldn't feel my arms anymore, my legs, and I started becoming lethargic. I got to the point where I could feel myself kind of, my head started dropping, and my eyes started closing a little bit. I was drifting away. And I started thinking to myself, this must be death. This is the start of death. And right before I closed my eyes, I had visions. I had two visions. I had a vision of my mom at the funeral, and I had a vision of all three of us floating on that lake, and the people flying over, my friends flying over, and seeing us there, dead. And for some reason, those two visions made me come to life again, or just gave me a whole different perspective on a whole different strength. And from that point on, it was all positive. We're going to do this. I started yelling. I remember at Bruce, we're going to make it. We're going to do it. And I kept yelling this. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it.
Like to hear Patty yelling. And that also helped a lot. It was the motivation to keep going. But I didn't know if they were there or not, or if I was going the right way, or but then when I heard them, it kept giving me motivation to go. And basically the thought, well, hey, if they made it, I can make it too.
Even though when we got to shore, we were extremely hypothermic, pretty much clubbed from the knees and elbows down. I wasn't able to stand the first couple times that I tried to get on shore. So Stan came into shore shortly after Patty and I got here, and that was a tremendous relief to me just to know that we could all survive to shore. But at that point, we were in a real possible death situation because of our exposure, and because we're so remote here, the chance of being located quickly was very difficult.
We met together on shore and started following Bruce up. And Bruce came upon a real sheltered cut bank.
There's brush up there along the door tack, only about this high.
The lake.
So it's
Bruce
not-
found a good little sheltered area.
What's
Bruce started doing was gathering, he started gathering dried moss and dried grass. But we couldn't, it's like we couldn't grab anything because our bodies, our hands were just shaking. It was just so cold.
At that point, my clothes were starting to freeze, and my hair was actually frozen. I can remember my hair was frozen solid.
Stan and I began gathering dry willow, and the willow that was around, there wasn't a whole lot, but we got enough to start our fire. And we took out our matches, and our matches supposedly were waterproof matches. The matches, I guess, were fine, but what we struck them on was saturated with water, and that deteriorates it. So, you know, it was useless anyway. And luckily, Bruce had a magnesium striker.
And then we got a little fire started.
The fire itself was very small. I mean, it was no bigger than about 8 inches across. And it's amazing how little fire you can have to keep you going.
Mark and I really believe that fire probably saved our lives. Without the fire, I don't think that we would have survived.
It was just knowing that I had to keep this fire going in order to survive.
Once we got that fire going, we realized, okay, we're going to live, we're going to make it.
We told ourselves we're going to stay up all night, we're not going to go to sleep right now.
That concept, you know, honestly scared me, spending the night there, just because, you know, it was just a fear of the unknown. What's going to happen? Is it going to get colder? Is it going to snow? Are we going to fall asleep and die? Or is the fire going to go out?
We had this tiny little fire, and Stan and Bruce and I were just, you know, just honkered around it.
We were trying to get the fronts of our bodies around the fire just to dry out, but we were mainly concerned with our hands and our feet.
I've never been as cold for a sustained period of time as I was that night. And we were all probably as miserable as we had ever been or may ever be.
Just we constantly communicated, and that's what kept me going. I had no doubt in my mind that we were not going to make it. I knew we were.
But the positive outlook was really good. That's what really kept us strong, kept us going. Just us being together and us being positive together. It was just strong enough to keep us going.
And we knew that it was important to keep a positive frame of mind and really believe that we were going to survive the situation.
We stayed up all night talking and
Because their boots froze.
singing
They were
and
soft and
just
wet.
keeping each other going.
25
keeping
degrees.
each other warm, trying to
They got
keep
frostbite pretty bad.
a real good frame of
Second
mind about it.
That's when the lake froze over, or the first day.
But we spoke a lot about trying to figure out the scenario of what they're thinking of in Kotzebue, what they're thinking of at headquarters. How are they going to rescue us? When are they going to figure out we're gone? How are they going to rescue us? How much time are they going to get? Are they going to find us? Bruce understood the way the plane usually goes in Kotzebue and how these searches usually progress. You know, the planes wouldn't come out at night, but they would, you know, probably come out in the morning. Bruce didn't really seem to be fluctuating. He seemed to be, you know, just stuck in that shiver stage.
I think that I probably didn't regain my body heat quite as quickly as the other two people. It was just so cold.
Well, he had the cotton socks, which were soaked, and his feet were just ice. So I tried to rub his feet, but he didn't seem to be getting very warm.
Since his core temperature seemed to stay low and he wasn't really recovering, he stayed around the fire most of the night. Bruce would keep the fire going because that was very important to us to always keep that fire going for any reason.
Yeah, and I think that really helped out as far as his, you know, his morale or whatever.
And it would be probably at least into the next day before there were search aircraft possibly here to locate us.
started hearing planes in the distance.
We could hear aircraft searching to the west of us, and we heard an aircraft come from the east.
One of them sounded like they were coming towards us, and then it just veered off behind us. We never saw it. We heard it really loudly. And well, we realized, okay, that plane is not gonna come find us. The second time, again, we heard a plane, we ran up the hill, and it went up, it was up another drainage, just in front of us. So we were sort of in the center. There was one behind us and one in front of us that went up two different drainages, but we were sort of just in this little void.
The planes were out there, they were looking for us, but they were just missing them. In those times, that's where we got,
This aircraft
at
had
least I
one
felt
point
myself, morale at least go way down, get real frustrated, and actually real angry.
Most of the time when float
Just
planes
at the whole
flip upside
situation,
down,
angry. Just at
not
the
enough
situation, Joe,
impact
was
even
because
on
of the
land,
sheer
set off the
frustration.
ELT.
We were real
But
disappointed
if they
about
flip
that.
upside
but
down in water,
We were still real hopeful
they're not gonna
until,
function, because the antenna's under the
until
water.
it started to become
Deads the
dusk that
signal.
evening. I felt like we were
So
very
nobody knew where they
vulnerable
were
here.
at.
A cold front or a storm coming down could literally kill us quite easily. And so when we weren't going to be located that second night, I became very concerned.
Well, why aren't they here? Why aren't they up the NOAA? We figured, the search planes are gonna come out, they're gonna go straight up the NOAA. How could they go wrong? There's something wrong, what's going
They
on?
were 16 miles off their course.
Why aren't
So
they
you
here? Why
multiply
aren't they
16
here?
miles inside the
So
river.
it was kind of
at the
like
length
the
of the
morale we
NOAA.
picked up all
That's
night.
thousands of miles.
Being so sure, it's like, okay, all we gotta do is make it through the night and they'll get us in the morning. And so it was kind of like a big letdown, disappointment.
The airplanes that were out there weren't seeming to find them right away, and so I got kind of concerned that it might be more serious
Now, Richard
than our initial
Buried
thoughts.
that gal.
Since I hadn't
Rescue.
flown for the Park Service before and knew the area
They're still
pretty well, I thought
happening.
maybe I could be of some assistance. I knew the flight plan, I talked to Warren, and I knew the flight plan, and I knew the mission they were on because I'd done it myself. I knew they were doing a hunter survey. And as we proceeded up the middle NOAA attack, I noticed a party of hunters and decided that they might be have some information. So I landed on a gravel bar and talked to them, and yeah, they described the airplane approximately when it passed over. They even noticed there was 3 people in it. So I thought, well, this is working out. And they told me which direction they were going, what the wind, what the weather was, and so on. So I figured, well, maybe the hunters are the best source of information. So I started up the river and I stopped and talked to a total of 6 different hunting parties, and every one of them got me closer and closer to in the right direction. And as I approached Mockpick Creek, I don't know why I went up to check that lake up on the bluff. I didn't think they'd be there because there's no hunters up there, but I thought, well, what the hell, I'm here, I'll swing by there.
We're just sitting around the fire, and then all of a sudden,
Out of nowhere, we heard the plane.
We did a Super Cub coming low from the west, and I'd given everybody the flares, aerial flares, and both Stan and I shot flares at the airplane.
We ran up, and we're waving and making all
These
kinds
flares,
of
they
motion
shot
and
off
shooting
in
the
pencil
flare off.
flares. They're about the size of your finger. and they-
When I swung by, I found
They just emit light.
the floats
They
of
don't go
the
up like a
185
flare,
inverted in the
like
lake.
they Come down.
And we
It can
flew
be
along the
seen
south
maybe
shore of
2 miles
the
away, a
lake,
mile away.
didn't see any survivors, didn't see any bodies. So we were concerned that they were still in the airplane. And at that time, Patty and Stan came out of the willows where they'd been trying to stay warm. Of course, we felt pretty good about that.
well, first of all, seeing the plane, that's what really picked us up, because we knew where we were at, and we knew the Park Service knew where we were at, and knew that we could be located.
We could see from passing over them that they had no survival gear at all, that all they had was the clothes they were wearing. So I knew they had swam from shore, so I knew they must have been pretty miserable. So we tossed out every bit of survival gear we had in the airplane, and Victor threw out his coveralls,
He was a
Victor's a
lifesaver.
Navy guy that works for the Park Service up there, and he took his coverall off in the airplane and tossed him out.
But we didn't take anything for granted, even though the two planes came in, they said the helicopter was coming in. And then, finally the helicopter came in. Even at that point, when me and Bruce left the fire pit down, we still never put the fire out. Still never took anything for granted. It was kind of like our trust was, our trust was shaken that day. And, we didn't trust anything. We didn't trust that the helicopter would run out of gas or wreck or whatever. So, we just realized it was very important. We were taking no chances at that point.
We stayed with our gear until the the two EMT guys came in, and we were hauling all of our gear into the helicopter and got all that taken care of and got into the helicopter, and then they started checking us out.
And then when we got to Kotzebue, everyone was there waiting for us.
I'm glad to say that it worked out the way it did. I was overjoyed, elated when I saw that the three of them were all right.
Okay, couple issues here. They got the shore okay, but, they had nothing on board that was useful at all. Couple of lessons learned out of that. Flight plan deviation. We can deviate for different reasons. Drive over here and take a pee, over there, take a pee, personal break, stuff like that. You got some weather, you want to divert around, stuff like that. But somebody's got to know, just think about going from here, say to Lake Creek or something like that, and the weather kind of sucks up there like it always does. You go off to the side, 15 miles or something like that because of a snow shower or rain shower. That's a lot of country to look at. And if nobody knows where you're off there, you're in a world of hurt. The flight plan was filed with the Park Service Friday night. Big party in town, in Kotzebue. Let's go to the party. The gal that had the flight plan, she was putting the party on. She left work early, and she went to her place and started getting everything ready for this big party. End of the year, they were going to release all the seasonals, everything else. And everybody started saying, well, where's Stan? Where's the pilot? Where's Patty? And now it's dark. And this gal went, oh shit. That's when the shit hit the fan, because the flight plan was filed, but it was never closed because of things. Case in point, if you file with the FAA, it's one thing. If you file a flight plan with your friend, okay, or your wife, and you're going to be gone for 2 days, what happens if they get in a car wreck? Nobody knows where you're at. Nobody knows where you're going. File it with a couple of people. If it's filed with an agency, it's a different thing. Lack of survival gear. I brought my vest. That's about 13 pounds. It's got everything in there, and I'm going to go over the vest really thoroughly so you understand what I packed. They had nothing. They had a magnesium fire stick, like that, which is super handy. They had no laser lights. The matches, the waterproof matches, they weren't in plastic bags. So those all got wet. Those little pencil flares, they're only good to hold, like they're about this long. And maybe an airplane could see it in the daytime, but they got to be pretty close. At night, they might be able to spot it a little bit easier. But they had no survival gear, and so that was one of the impetuses when I got the OS as the chief pilot. I started working with Eagle Enterprises, who's got a booth out here, and we put together and got these Nomex vests made from Stearns. And then we started saying, well, this is the minimum stuff you need to survive. Because what you have on board yourself is what you live on. And that's the gist of my conversation, okay? So always have a flight plan with the FAA or responsible person or persons. If you're filing with somebody in town here, personal friends, stuff like that, because they might get in a car wreck, they might, who knows, you know, what's gonna happen. But you gotta have something here, so people follow through. If you deviate from the flight plan, just broadcast in the blind, you know. You can broadcast in the blind on common traffic advisory, and they were within radio range of no attack, and, you know, the village. Which has still got a lot of traffic going in and out of it, yet they had no way to contact anybody. They didn't have a personal EPIRB, they didn't have any of that stuff. Or file frequent pilot reports. I strongly suggest everybody file pilot reports because it helps out all of us in the aviation community. That you sit there, you file a pilot report, make it accurate, you know. I had a pilot that happened to be flying for me, and he was flying out of Atlanta, and he filed a flight report, and he was up by Hoosville. And we happened to have a group of pilots touring flight service station in Fairbanks, and he's giving a pilot report in. He says, yeah, visibility is like 3/4 of a mile, sky obscured, and the air traffic guy goes back and says, well, you know, Bart's right here beside me. And he goes, oh God, it's 10,000 feet, visibility unlimited. He was a funny guy. But anyway, he filed pilot reports accurately all the time, saying the weather really sucks or it's good, stuff like that. But once he found out I was there, it was suddenly really good. Always have your emergency gear on your person or easily accessible. I wear my vest all the time because years ago, in my formative aviation career, I worked for a lot of dubious people. George, he had a hell of a deal. I could fly all the wrecked airplanes out of the bush so he could salvage them in town. And for that, I could bring my own lunch. And sometimes he'd think about paying me, but most of the time he didn't pay me. So most of the airplanes I flew for George at no cost to him, I was just building hours and character. Anyway, in my career of 40,000 hours, I've had about 7 accidents. 2 of those were precautionary put-downs, you know, where I had to get down because I was having complications. Had lots of fuel controller on a turbine helicopter that I was flying. And the others were mechanical issues, flying for George and other people like him. So that taught me a lot of respect for having the right gear on board myself early on in my life. So anyway, where's your emergency gear stored that you have in the aircraft? Is it on board yourself? Like a vest? Is it in the back, buried among all the stuff in the back? Where's it at? Here's the idea. I used to fly over water a lot, back and forth to Kodiak and down to Southeast. If I went across to ferry an aircraft at like 1,500 feet from Anchorage to Kodiak, you go across the Barrens, and out there when the wind's blowing, the waves are about this tall. And it's all white. Because all the wind tops the waves are getting cut off. Just blowing like a son of a bitch. But, let's go back. Anyway, when I go across there, I have a Gumby suit on, which is a full suit, immersion suit. And I have a life raft right beside me, tied to a lanyard, a parachute cord, with a loop in the end of it around my wrist. Because I knew if I put down in that water, the airplane's not going to stay upright very long. It's going to flip over because the winds are howling so much. So I always had that lanyard around my wrist with the life raft. if you're flying by yourself and you stuff all your gear in the back, your own survival gear, and you don't have anything on yourself, tie a lanyard to your survival bag, run it up along right by your head up here, and duct tape it into the lanyard with a hook with a loop in it, right there by the door. So if you go upside down, like those guys in the Will, Skill, and Luck video, at least you know inside the airplane you can reach right there and get the lanyard and pull your gear out. Because if you try and dive in there underneath the water to find your gear inside an airplane, it's upside down, forget it. So where's your emergency gear stored? On you? Right there, me and 3 other people could live just fine for 3 or 4 days. You know, I mean, I've got all the gear on me. If we could get the emergency gear out, is it close to you? Like I said, that I had the raft sitting there where a lanyard hooked the thing. Or is it buried in the rear? It's usually buried in the rear. This is a pilot called Bill Smoke, and I don't know how many of you remember Bill was involved in that midair out of Birchwood. This is 20 years ago or something like that, and the guy had 2 daughters on board and stuff like that. It was bad. But he and I both worked for an outfit called Silver Bay Logging out of Juneau. And I was flying helicopters down there, and he was flying fixed wing. And Bill, because he was young and stupid like we all were at one time, he was servicing several of these distant outposts of Silver Bay Logging, and one of them was in Fogneck. They were logging there. So he wanted to get home, and instead of following the coast, up and around through Cordova, down by Yakatraz and out that way, Yakatraz. He'd just go directly, right straight across the Gulf of Alaska. Outside of Middleton Island. I mean, Middleton Island was way out there. And that's inland. 16 miles short of Juneau on that flight. He had dual magneto failure. And it shut him down. He didn't have any flotation gear on himself. He had nothing in the airplane, like flotation rafts or anything like that. He saw, what they say, coming and seeing Jesus or something like that. He had a Jesus moment anyway. After that, he started wearing the vest, got a survival bag, and you see the airplane's all packed, and he's got all this stuff filled with stuff in there, so it's pretty near gross. But the survival bag now, he would leave, or flotation gear or whatever else, he would leave up front by the co-pilot's seat. And if he had passengers, they could just rest their feet on it and endure it for the trip. But after that, he saw the light and moved that right up to here instead of back here. Okay. If you happen to get upset in an unfortunate incident, it's nice to be able to walk off in that beaver pond and get over to shore and build yourself a little fire. This is about 20 miles north of Galena. So you can imagine in the summer when the water's calm and it's gray overcast day, that the mosquito population is about 700 million to an inch. So the first thing you want to do is get your survival bag out, walk over to shore, and start a giant smudge fire. Just keep throwing a lot of green leaves on it and stuff like that, because the mosquitoes will drive you crazy. And that's part of my vest as well, and I'll talk about that when we get into it. In this case, the airplane's not upside down, you can access everything. He's a little embarrassed, didn't hurt the prop. Took a lot of effort, but once he got in here, in this water, that whole thing was only about 500 feet long. We had to empty all of the seats out, had to take all the fuel out, just so he get airborne and get over to the bigger lake up here. This pilot, he went upside down. This is Isaac Lagoon in Kotzebue. And Isaac Lagoon's got lots and lots of 55-gallon drums in it. It used to be the dumping grounds for everybody out there. And this pilot didn't know about it. And he landed and hit one of those drums sitting this far below the water and flipped his airplane. And he exited out the window on the left-hand side of the Cub. And he had survival gear and stuff in it, but he didn't need it because you see there's lots of little shacks behind there. He didn't have any flotation gear, he didn't need it. He weighed about 280 pounds, 300 pounds. And going through that little window, the size he was, I couldn't believe he could go through the door, much less. But here, to get that gear out in the back, you still have to dive down in the water and go back, and you can't do it when it's really cold. You know, just like in the Will, Skill, and Luck, they could never get any gear that was in that airplane, and they didn't have very little, all of it was inside the aircraft. So where you put your survival bag, accessibility, maybe if he had a duct tape a lanyard to the window there, he could just stood on the wing right here and then pulled that out if he was really out in the wilderness. But here he had just walked ashore, and all the villagers were holding up signs like 5.6, 3.2. They were judging his own, like a ice skating event. Okay. So, emergency gear storage options. Where do you carry your gear? You know, mine's in survival vest, which I'm going to go over. You can stick them in a fanny pack, sits in kind of front. But you know, if you're trying to pull the yoke back or stick back, it's going to maybe bump the yoke of the stick. You could fill the cargo pants up, you know, so you look like some warrior or something else. But you know, they got lots of pockets. You could have a survival bag in the back. But where do you carry your gear? And you know, I had enough of those put downs in the wilderness and stuff like that, that I got an appreciation of having gear on me, because if I exited right away, that's all I had to survive. You know, the airplane stayed upright, I could grab this. Great camping trip. If it didn't stay upright or whatever, it burned, the airplane could burn, then you got whatever you got on board yourself. So, you have the basic for year-round flying. This is, you know, they were talking about this as a winter course, but I wear this vest year-round. And right now, the way that vest is set up for summer and winter flying. You know, I can go anywhere in the winter or in the summer, and everything's right there that I need. 13 pounds. It doesn't weigh that much. I got freedom to get in and out, got flotation in it, in case I go upside down in the drink. So you have the necessary supplies, you know. You have enough supplies like going over water, let's say from here to Shuyak or Fognak or Kodiak or someplace like that, or flying across Prince William Sound. Oh, we're just going to go down to Cape Yakutat and go bear hunting or something like that. If you got the gear, go across the water. Because you got to think about this, is you're going across Prince William Sound, are there a lot of favorable landing spots, let's say on wheels? No. You're going to put it in the trees, where there's 200-foot trees. You're going to put it 20 feet from the shore, where there's big waves crossing on the shore. You got to think about those things in your flight, whether you're going over water, winter, summer. Have you tested your gear in real life? I used to do 4 clinics a year for the pilots at the Department of Interior. I'd do a float clinic. I'd do a float clinic at like Carlick Lake on Kodiak, Minnow Flats up in Square Banks. I did an off-airport clinic. We'd go up on the Wool Lake or someplace like that out of Kotzebue, a couple of 100 miles, land on a gravel bar, camp out, have a good time. Ski clinics, we do in Bettles or in Tetlin National Wildlife Refuge, almost to the Canadian border over by Beaver Creek. Usually in March, and that would happen like at 30 below all the time, every night. Daytimes are beautiful ski for me. And then an amphib clinic. But during that week-long training, I'd make everybody get out, because we usually were around some cabins or something like that where we'd have a nice, comfortable night. I'd make everybody get out one night, take all their gear out of the airplane, and go over to the woods and set it up. Pouring rain in Kodiak. 25 below in Bettles. You know, up on the Wolek and everything else, that was a bit easier because it was summertime. But if you tested it in real life, really, have you gone out in the woods here, over in or in Centennial Park, and set up camp for one night? Have your family member or somebody take you out there and drop you off and try your gear out that you have in the airplane. Not to mention the gear you have on board. And see if it works. You'll learn really fast it doesn't work, you know. So I always test it out. I always had smart asses in these classes and saying, oh, I don't need to do that camp out, you know, with get all the stuff out of the airplane. I know how to camp out. Okay. Well, we're doing it. And by the way, you've got a broken arm. And then somebody else would give me a ration of shit, and I'd say, well, you got a broken leg. You know. Now go put your tent on. Now go get your sleeping bag out. Now go, you know, conduct yourself in a real life situation. Because if you got just a simple wrist fracture or something like that, your odds are astronomical against success. So, you know, you just think about being handicapped, you know, in the different conditions. Like I said, wet, dry, cold, you know, all the environment that we see all the time. In my survival vest, in the lower left-hand pocket here, I got a couple rolls with 50 feet of surveyors flagging around. Those old film canisters, the 35 millimeter film canisters. You got 50 feet each wrapped around them. They work excellent. Year round. They're more than one use of signaling to somebody, like putting SOS on the field or something. Let's say we're on skis and we're coming in and we're going to land on this near whiteout conditions, flat light conditions, you know. I got a nice video out on that. You can see those on YouTube. But you come in, you do a low pass over where you're going to put down, like out west where there's no vegetation and stuff like that to give you a reference. You drop one of those canisters out, count to about 2 or 3 seconds, 4 seconds, put another one out. So if you do your approach to the first one with the ribbon hanging out 50 feet, and you can see the second one, great. Just touch down the first one, be stopped by the second one. If you touch down at the first one, and you can't see the ribbon, but the second one you dropped out, there's probably going to be a beaver lodge in between you and it. Whack! So it'll be way back on the yoke. So anyway, pair of sunglasses. Even though I wear glasses in flight, you know, if I have a wreck and they come off, they're gonna, or even my specs, they're just gonna come off and get crushed, lost, whatever else. But in my vest, I got a pair of sunglasses there. Then inside of this plastic bag, inside this other plastic bag, that's 50 feet of parachute cord. There's toilet paper in here, paper towels, and in the center of it are fire sticks, about 5 fire sticks all rolled up nice and tight. So that right there works really fine. You know, you can separate parachute cord and cut it in half, you know, cut a piece of it off. You get real fine strands out of that stuff. It works really fine for all sorts of things instead of just using the whole cord. Separate the cord apart, pull everything out. In the lower right-hand pocket, first aid kit. I kind of modified this. I got gauze for a big wound. I can use that surveyor's flag and hold that gauze onto a wound. I got a bunch of Tylenol, Excedrin in here. I've got a magnesium fire stick in this end, and then the other end's matches, waterproof matches, and you can strike them on the side there. Whistle, a couple of those little finger flares, and one with a curvature on this torch lighter to use to light your barbecue and stuff like that. All in a plastic bag. Plastic bags deal is a couple of things. You can use them to collect water. You can use them to put your hands in, you know, to conserve heat. There's all sorts of uses for all this stuff. So think through it, but you'll see in my presentation that I have a lot of fire department. So in the upper middle one, middle right one, I've got an E-perm, and that's a 121.5. Out here at Eagle Enterprises, they've got the newer E-perms that broadcast 406, 243, and 121.5. Same thing, only I'm cheap and I'm still running with this. But the 210 Air Rescue and people like that, they still monitor 121.5 when they're searching. They're not just going to 406s. Overhead Traffic International is still doing 121.5. I've got some afterbite, because nothing like treating those bug bites at Galena when there's a couple million of your best friends. I got a signal mirror that you can flash, and you just hold your fingers out like that. If you see an airplane moving, you have the mirror here, and you're flashing the light up in between your bead. It's the same technique you use for a laser. You know, you just back and forth, and you're going to get their attention out there. I got a bug dope. I carry it in the winter, and a bug net. Why do I carry bug dope in the winter?
Fire starter.
Fire starter. Works really great. Okay. So the upper left center pocket, I got inReach, and it's always charged. All these devices are charged. I've got a pair of extra specs, a writing utensil, so if I have to leave camp here because it's in the swamp or it's in the water, like in no attack, and we got to go to shore or someplace that's protected. Maybe I'm going to move into the trees, stuff like that. I'm going to leave a note in the aircraft. We moved the party 1,000 feet northeast or something like that for the rescuers to find. So I'll write them a note. Then a couple of coffee packs, emergency checklist for the aircraft. At Rust, I fly everything from the turbines on down to the fixed wing, the small no float equipped aircraft. But I carry emergency checklists for those. I can also carry a distance measuring thing for judging length of my landing area. It gives you time and distance here, gives you a distance of whether you can get in. And the 10 standard aviation questions card, which I'm going to go over. And people say, I'm going to check this, my coffee. Campbell soup can, well used. I crushed it down so I can get it inside my vest. What good is this in a survival kit? Oh, yeah? Water, you heat. What are you going to start your fire with?
Yes.
Fill this with gas out of your sump. Set it down, pile a bunch of wood. You can pile wet alders on it. You can pile all sorts of wet stuff like in Kodiak. And I showed the guys this trick a lot in the Kodiak when we did a lot of camping out there. fill it up. Stack wood up over the top of it. Take your torch, light it off. It's not gonna explode. It's just gonna burn intensely for about 15 minutes. Now usually, I used to do it with a beer can, but we got a couple of FAA guys in here, and I don't want them to arrest me. Drinking and driving. This thing has been used numerous times. So we start our fire, you know, build a fire, build all your stuff over it. You get that done, go collect some snow, collect some water, put it in the fire, let it boil for a little bit. You know, you taste the gas. I've tested this on my pilots, I didn't try it myself. Okay. Next one. So upper left, handy dandy laser. You know, same thing if you're looking at something like an airplane way off, like that outlet right there. You can see right through your fingers right where it's at and keep it in mind. And a fire stick, magnesium fire stick. That's what got the fire started for those guys on the nose shafts. But I carry that in my upper left pocket. Okay, next. And in another pocket I have another fire, source of fire. So the whole idea is numerous fire devices. The best one is just the gas in the gas can. You know, if the airplane's upside down, take the cap off and just stick your Campbell soup can underneath it and get it. You know, there's all sorts of ways to get gas out of the motors. In the back, there's a zipper on the back. And I've got a thermal protective aid, and this is just like a sleeping bag. You just pull it on a mummy bag, zips all the way up, and it's just like the space age fabric. And Eagle Enterprises out there, they've got similar products. But it's a body bag, and you can be sopping wet, like those folks did on the Will Skill Luck video. Get to shore, pull that on, that would have made a difference. They would have saved their toes. We had another pilot, it drove me crazy. He put down outside of Kotzebue, about 40 miles from Kotzebue from Selawik. And, he always insisted on wearing the prescribed Park Service gear, including shoes, even in the winter. Leather boots. Oh. Give me a break. You know? Well, anyway, he put down safely, but he didn't have he had a sleeping bag, you know, besides a thermal bag, but he took his boots off, set them outside, and then he crawled inside the sleeping bag. You know? And in the morning, he put the boots on. And they were frozen solid, so frozen that he lost 2 little toes, one in each foot. Because the boots were frozen solid, and he's walking around, and he had the preheater to start his Cub and everything else, and fly it the rest of the way in town, but he was wearing this regulation footwear. For God's sake. Anyway, in the back there also, I carry a little folding saw, and that sits right in the bottom like that. It's like a lumbar support. Okay? So, where are you going? You know, what's your flight plan? And this is the one thing that bugs me. This is up the Pica Glacier up on Denali. And middle of the summer, we take people up there all the time for a tour in the summer. So where are you going? Up in the mountain ranges? Are your passengers dressed for the condition? Well, in the 135 world, usually the passengers are not dressed for the conditions. They're here in Anchorage and they want to go Fairview and Katmai. They come up in their flip-flops and shorts and t-shirt. I say, you know anything about black flies or no-see-ums and stuff like that? There's a lot of those out at Katmai. We're fine. All that jobs, that's just bullshit. Okay, they come back bleeding in about 3 hours. Or up onto the mountain. Leave here, nice day, go to the mountain, go through the Alaska Range. You could be in the same situation right here. This pilot, dressed for the conditions. See where he wears his hip boots down around his calves right there? He's got 2 sizes big. He did this on purpose. He's got 2 sizes oversized because he walked across his crosswires here and it busted on him. And he fell in the Koyukuk River. And he had a hell of a time, but he kicked his boots off immediately. And his idea was he wasn't going to walk very far in them anyway, but he got rid of them real quick. This gal with her hip boots all the way up, the shoe fell off the crossover wire or fell into the water. In a current is one thing, in a lake is a different thing. In a lake, you can hang on to that float line, maybe pull yourself up. But if they'll say you're in the current out on the Cusco or something like that, you're going to get swept downstream. There's no way in hell, that once your boots filled with water and the current grabs them, you're going to go for a ride. So dress for the conditions, summer, winter. This is what I wear in the winter flying. Pair of those Norwegian dog mushing boots, belt. When I stop on skis and stuff like that, I'll stand on the ski, dig a hole with my foot. Even though I set tracks, I'll go down until I get to the ice. And if I get into water right away, like a lot of overflow, I'll throw these Neil mucklucks on. They fit right over these boots. They got gaiters that comes right up to your bottom of your knee. And you can wade in water right up to here, good this deep, all by your knee, and you're never gonna get wet feet. If you don't have those, and all you got is like a felt boot or an old army muckluck or something like that, just stick it in the water, step back out, and let it freeze. Let the water freeze on your boot. That will keep the water from getting into it. So just in and out of the water, and then let them freeze while you stand on the ski. Of course, you don't want to wear these. But I swear to God, we take people to Denali, and that's what they're wearing. So, and what kind of gear you got with you? Got a small set of shoes, like those are my wife's shoes and my feet. I got a size 13. When I step in those, I go from here back to here. Or versus a set of trail shoes. Winter gloves, summer gloves, I take these in a small day pack with me in the summer. These in a little bigger pack in the winter. Okay. So who would you want to be with this scenario? What kind of snowshoes would you want in this condition to dig this thing out? First of all, you got to dig underneath here, and lo and behold, that's a big drift right there. So you got to chop the ice out of that, get the thing level. Unfortunately, on this Husky, there's no way to stop the fuel transfer on a Husky. The fuel will run from this tank to this tank, and the only thing to stop it is a piece of chewing gum stuck in the vent. Remember to take it out, otherwise you'll collapse the tank when you take off. But stick that in the vent on that wing, stick some chewing gum. It always pays to have some chewing gum. Stick that in the vent, that will keep it cross-feed. Next. So who would you want to be with in this condition? Mr. Bart? With all his gear and gloves and shoes and hats and vest? Or this tourist right here? Going to Denali for the day. Bad choice. Those people that we take up there, they're going to suffer big time. That's all I can say. You better hope the ELT and everything works. Checklist. What do you see about a checklist here? These are the bold-faced items you're supposed to all know, right? Any ideas what's missing?
Fire?
Now you got flaps and idle cutoff, master off, you got all this stuff. So what's missing?
Controls clear and free.
Yeah.
Seaflows.
Anything else? Next. If you're going down, just hit the ELT remote switch. If you're just going down, hit it. Bypass all the emergency procedures right here. That should be the first thing in your mind. Get that ELT going. If you get one hit, let's say we're down the bottom, flying along, lifting up over the proverbial 50-foot spruce trees of the FAA and all. You don't have time to do anything, except maybe trigger the ELT. If you're at altitude, you got 5,000 feet, you got a few minutes, you can deal with it. But that should be the first step of any emergency. Just trigger it. If you make a safe landing, just shut it off. Assess the situation, ask for forgiveness later. Sorry, I was going down, I thought I might be upside down, da-da-da-da-da-da. If you're in a float plane, that might be your only thing that saves you, right there, as you're going down. Because, you know, if you flip upside down in a little pond or something like that, the antenna's stuck in the mud, stuck in the water, not gonna work. That's the facts of the matter. So, just think of the ELT ahead of all the bold-faced items that are ever taught. Should be the first thing you hit. If you're gonna have, say you suck the valve or something, the engine's still running, boom. Then take care of the rest of the stuff. Trim the best glide speed, brief your passengers, go through the checklist. I carry that list of watch out items because I like to give it to the passengers as well. Is the flight necessary? Does the weather suck today? Can we do it some other day? Do we absolutely have to get out there today? No. Who's in charge? Who's in charge in the plane?
You are.
You are. Anybody else? How about your passengers? You enable your passengers to say, I'm not comfortable with this. You should enable your passengers. You should tell them if at any point in the flight they feel uncomfortable, let me know, because I can always go back. I can always turn around. So, who's in charge? Me. Who's also in charge? The passengers. If they're uncomfortable and they're not feeling good, they're not going to enjoy the flight. I can guarantee you that. All the hazards known, identified, weather, route, performance of the aircraft. You know, all these things come into any flight. Should you stop operations on the flight due to conditions? Yeah, for communication, weather, confusion, conflict of priorities, personnel, turbulence. What I consider mild turbulence, somebody from the Midwest might think the wings are going to fall off the airplane. You know, so we're going to have some bumps up ahead here, ladies and gentlemen. If you're feeling uncomfortable, let me know. I can turn around. Enable your passengers. Is there a better way to do it? You know, that old story, well, geez, you did the same thing that old guy did from Joe's Flying Service. He couldn't get out of this lake either. Maybe you better get a helicopter. Classic sense of overwhelming sense of urgency. Years ago, on Merrill Field here, the CAP, I've been a member since about 72, the CAP had the maintenance facility over where the Polaris hangar is. There was a big search. And this guy came out with his observers, getting this 185 ready, and everybody's going like this. And he's looking at him. He's got to go. He fires it up, and then he gives it the gas, and he starts pulling out of the spot. He thinks he's pulling out. He just gave it the power. He didn't go very far because the prop wasn't on the airplane.
Hello?
Now, is that an overwhelming sense of urgency? Nice pre-flight guy, and this guy was an airline captain for Spirit Airlines. No. Can you justify your actions? Who do we have to justify our actions to? FAA, right? If you violate a FAR, you gotta justify it, right? But who else do you justify it to? Yourself, yeah. You gotta, is this what I wanna be doing? Are there other aircraft in the area? Well, going back and forth through Lake Clark Pass, I mean, you could dodge the other aircraft, because they're coming and going, right? But we wanna go to Telequana Lake or something like that. Well, I'm not, it's a nice day, I'm just gonna cut right over the Alaska Range and hop straight into Telequana, save some time. Are there any airplanes on that route normally? No. To have an escape route. All these years of flying, probably because of my formative years flying for George Grant and other people like him, I got paranoid. As I'm putting along and, oh, I can get in there. Ooh, that's ugly. Oh, that's doable. Ugh. But if I have an engine issue, it staggers, swallows a valve, does something like that, I'm going, well, I know 2 minutes back there's a low field there. Or knowing the terrain, like I have after all these years of flying Alaska, 57 years. I come up to the corner, I go, oh, right around the corner there's a little gravel bar. I'm gonna make it to that gravel bar. The last place you want to put down, and if you ever want to open your eyeballs, is between the east end and the west end of the Narrows. Fly through there like 100 feet and look at the size of the rocks in that river and the rocks and the alders on the side, because you want to go into the alders and cushion the aircraft that you're going to wreck. The boulders are half the size of this room. They're huge. So on your escape route and stuff, have that in your mind. Any rules being broken out? What's the VFR flight rules? You guys are pilots, what are they?
500 below, 1,000 above,
Sure.
2,000 feet horizontal.
What are your rules? Are they the same as the FAA?
Pretty similar.
Mercaneer, close?
Situationally dependent.
Okay, Rocky, what if you got your family on board, your dad and mom are up?
Oh, I'm super cautious in the first place. Yeah, I don't.
Okay,
I
so
don't press that stuff.
now we get all these varying VFR minimums, right? Why not just stay with one? Don't follow me where I fly, and I don't want to follow other people where they fly. I've learned that lesson the hard way. Our communication is getting tense. Ever hear of body language? Got a passenger sitting here. I'm putting along. Boy, the weather's getting low. Oh, it's getting really ugly. It's like dog shit. Now, the pilot is kind of trying to see through beyond that half-mile visibility. And if you're a passenger sitting here, you should be aware of what the pilot's doing. And pretty soon his face is on the plexiglass. And the yoke is all the way back. Is he tense? You betcha. Are you deviating from the assigned thing like those guys in the military? Okay, next. So, 10 rules of survival. You must be prepared to help yourself. Just have the necessary gear that you have. Know how to use it. Always prepare yourself for a possible emergency. I do all the time. When I'm flying, I'm not paranoid, but I'm saying, what if, what if, what if? And it's become a natural, subliminal understanding of the terrain I'm following through, thinking about what I've just gone by and what it's coming forward toward me. If you leave the aircraft where you, the wreckage stuff, log a flight plan, write it down on the paper, leave it in the airplane. Maybe you're gonna walk 1,000 feet over and get into timber where there's more protection, unlike the people in the Will, Skill, and Luck video that were just exposed to the elements. Never leave the camp or aircraft and travel alone. What happens here if you step off in the Centennial Park about 500 feet and you twist your ankle? You don't have a cell phone. You're in a world of hurt trying to get 500 feet back to the truck, right? I mean, always travel with somebody in case you have it. If you're going someplace safer. But the number one rule is always stay with the aircraft. Next. Don't fight the environment, conserve your energy. You know, if you're there in a survival situation, just do the basics that you need to do to live. Try and collect firewood close by. No basic first aid, you know. American Red Cross, they offer first aid classes all over town constantly. Best to review them, especially like CPR, how much stuff has changed over the years. Know how to prepare a shelter, and that's like I used to have the pilots do. One time during the week, they had to go out and build a shelter, stay in that shelter, exist in that shelter. Just try it out here in the woods and see if you can build a shelter with what you got on board yourself, or even in your survival bag if you think you're hoity-toity. Know how to find water. You can drink water, speaking of water. I wish you had some water here. This is tequila. Yeah. You can drink the water out of a swamp. You can drink it out of a little rain stream. Yeah, you might get giardia, but how many days can you go without water? 3 days. I always carry a water bottle with me full when I leave. That way if I go down someplace, like in the winter, I'll take a sip. First thing I'm gonna do is take some snow and put it back in and fill that water jug back up and put it back inside my vest and everything else in my coat. Keep it warm so that it melts. I just keep adding snow to the water so I have a source of water. Conserve the heat and energy. That just goes without saying. You know, if you're gonna be going off in the woods and getting stuff and carrying wood back to the fire, take off your big coat, stuff like that, so you don't get sweaty walking out there. Use your head and don't make rash decisions. Okay? Couple of good books. This is the old Air Force One manual, 1969. It's still in use, in different version, different printing. Summer, winter, desert, mountain, and staying alive in the Arctic, cold weather, winter survival. Here, put out by the American Petroleum Institute. But you know, you should have those in your library, review them once in a while, so you understand what's going on, just to get the old brain working again. Next. So anyway, if you're out, you made a successful landing on this lake, you know, you should always, in this cub, carry a little bag of barley and grain. Because you want to walk around the shore, you put the grain right over here, then start dropping back along the shore, right to here. So when this moves, follows that grain trail. You can have yourself a steak right here, throw in the airplane. Maybe you can even cajole them to get on the float and fly home with you. So you have a traveling source of meat. Next. Keep the greasy side down. And I got to get out of here because I ran over my time, but I'll be outside if people want to ask questions of me or want to look at the vest a little bit. But Eagle Enterprises has got similar stuff. They've got the Switlick vest out there with MOLLE pouches on it, stuff like that that work real sufficient. But what you have on board of yourself is what you survive on. Summer or winter. If you got a survival bag in the back and it's the biggest, best, you know, remember bags and baggage? Went down and, baggage and bogs. They went down this big search. 3,700 hours searching for them. And the wife described all the survival gear they had on board. Oh, he's got this, he's got that. And they're saying, God, that's quite a list. Where do you get that list at? And then the RCC asked her. And she says, well, it's right here on this foot locker. They said, what's inside the foot locker? Oh, a bunch of stuff. Food, cloth. We left all the survival gear behind. Anyway, I'm out of here.
Thank you.
Good job.
Terrific.